Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty incredible. We're looking at how the greatest sporting event on Earth morphed from a really small 13-team logistical nightmare into the 48-team global mega event it is today. We're focusing entirely on the structural evolution of this legendary tournament. We'll look at the math, the format changes, and the intense growing pains of organizing a competition that, in its most recent edition, literally captured the attention of over 60% of the entire planet.
We've got 5 distinct evolutionary stages to track today, from the Olympics to the World Cup, the 16-team era, the super awkward 24-team era, the modern 32 standard, and finally, the massive 2026 expansion. Let's get right into it.
To understand how the tournament survived and thrived over the last century, we really have to look at these specific reactionary leaps. You see, the structure didn't grow in a smooth upward curve. It started at 13, bumped slightly to 16, jumped to 24, settled at a nice symmetric 32, and is now ballooning all the way to 48. We're going to find out exactly why these specific mathematical leaps had to happen.
All right, era number 1, from the Olympics to the World Cup.
Before this tournament was even a thing, the Olympics served as the de facto world championship. But in 1928, FIFA president Jules Rimet pushed for an independent tournament. The result? In 1930, exactly 13 teams showed up in Uruguay. I mean, 13. Why such an incredibly odd, uneven number for a bracket? Well, honestly, the logistics were an absolute nightmare. Europe was right in the middle of a financial crisis, and most nations just couldn't afford the massive ship journey to South America. Get this, Egypt was supposed to be the only African team, but their ship was delayed by bad weather, and they literally missed the whole thing. Plus, Japan and Thailand withdrew before it even started. So they kicked off with just 2 teams from North America, 4 from Europe, and 7 from South America. Talk about an unbalanced starting bracket, right?
And you know, the early structural politics were just as messy as the bracket itself. There was supposed to be an agreement to alternate host continents between Europe and South America. But when Italy hosted in 1934, the reigning champs, Uruguay, actually boycotted the tournament. They were furious about Europe's poor attendance 4 years prior. Then, in 1938, France hosted. That completely broke the alternating agreement, leading both Argentina and Uruguay to boycott. It was wild. It actually wasn't until after the 1958 tournament in Sweden, which marked back-to-back European hosts, that FIFA finally stepped in. They made continental rotation an official rule just to stop the boycotts and bring some much-needed stability to the structure.
Moving right along to our second stage, the 16-team era.
By 1934, global interest had absolutely exploded. But that gave FIFA a brand new structural problem. Way too many teams actually wanted to play. So, to filter them down, they introduced the qualification stage. And this was a brilliant move, because it locked the final tournament bracket to exactly 16 teams. If you follow sports, you know 16 is a magic number in a tournament. It's a perfect power of 2, which means it allows for perfectly balanced groups and a super clean knockout phase. No awkward byes needed to make the math work. This baseline format was so solid, it incredibly stayed in place for almost 50 years, all the way until 1982.
But as the world got smaller and television turned the tournament into a global phenomenon, the pressure on that 16-team bracket reached a boiling point. By the 1978 tournament, a record 95 teams were fighting in the qualification stage. But here's the massive bottleneck. Because the host nation and the defending champion automatically qualified, there were literally only 14 spots left in the actual bracket for those 95 teams to fight over. Just imagine the pressure.
Which leads us perfectly into Stage 3, the awkward 24-team era.
That immense, overwhelming qualification pressure forced FIFA's hand. In 1982, when Spain hosted, they expanded the bracket to 24 teams to give more countries a shot at international glory. But mathematically speaking, 24 is a terribly awkward number for a tournament. It resulted in a hilariously confusing format. Step 1, the 24 teams were split into 6 groups of 4. Okay, simple enough, right? But the top 2 teams advanced to Step 2, which was another group stage featuring 4 groups of 3. The winners of those finally went to Step 3, a 2-round knockout. It was so incredibly convoluted, you practically needed a degree in mathematics just to follow who was actually advancing.
Thankfully, FIFA realized almost immediately how confusing that pathway to the final was. So for the very next tournament in 1986 in Mexico, they issued a massive format correction. They scrapped that second group stage entirely. Instead, after the initial groups, they introduced a clean 16-team knockout round that led all the way straight to the final. This made the viewing experience so much better.
They replaced those awkward three-team round robins with high-stakes, do-or-die knockout football. Exactly what we want to see.
All right, up next is Stage 4, the modern 32 standard.
In 1998, the bracket finally achieved perfect mathematical symmetry. The tournament officially expanded from 24 up to 32 teams, and 32 is a perfect power of 2, making the transition from group stages right into a knockout tree entirely flawless. But to accommodate this massive expansion, another huge structural shift had to happen. For the very first time, the rules shifted to allow 2 countries from the exact same continent to be placed in the same group together, formally acknowledging the growing density of quality teams popping up across the globe.
This beautiful, symmetric 32-team standard was a real sweet spot, lasting for decades all the way through the 2022 tournament. But FIFA has decided to scale up yet again, which begs a massive logistical question for the future. How do you gracefully fit 48 teams into a single bracket without returning to that awkward, convoluted mess we saw back in 1982?
Let's find out in our final stage, the massive 2026 expansion.
Looking ahead to the upcoming North American tournament shared between Mexico, Canada, and the United States, the scale and the math are both staggering. The bracket is ballooning to 48 total teams placed into 12 groups of 4. To make a knockout tree actually function with this awkward number, the top 2 teams from each group will advance, plus the 8 best-performing third-place teams. All of these survivors form an absolutely massive 32-team knockout stage. That means more teams, more games, and wildly complex scenarios just to survive the group phase.
And that brings us to the ultimate question. We've gone from a handful of teams traveling on ships to play in a weirdly unbalanced 13-team bracket in 1930 to a highly engineered 48-team global mega event today. So, does this ongoing, relentless expansion mean we'll eventually see every single country on Earth competing directly in the final bracket? Or has the tournament, at 48 teams and a massive 32-team knockout phase, finally reached its absolute structural limit? It's something every fan will have to watch unfold. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the structures behind the things we love.